The purpose of this video is to display and describe how custom programming and software development using the C# programming language and the Tekla Open API set of code that Tekla provides can create applications that are customized to meet common and specific needs. The video will describe updating part marks, but it really could involve a lot more than just that. Um, but I'm going to mention some things that really happened on this project. This may not look very big on the screen, but these are two very large towers, mirrors of each other, and there was a lot going on this project in that initially the whole thing was to be submitted as a one project, and that's the way that the drawings were all set up. And then because of some problems with the engineering company and so many changes, we had to change the submission, and so that the area below this area was project 1, and then up to the top was project 2, and then all the stairs, which are really quite extensive on this job, all of that was project 3. And so it wasn't submitted in one submission, it was submitted in several, and often when the engineers did return the information, there was very little time to make updates and send it on. And one of the problems that we run into is that parts in the lower section are common to the upper section, and when we had to split the project into unexpectedly had to submit the project into various sequences or phases, then we had to be careful that the parts that we submitted for the first sections weren't duplicated in subsequent sections. We never want to think that the fabricator is going to keep track of that. It's up to the detailer. So we'll just kind of reduce it to some parts, and okay, here's some parts that we did have, and I'll just do some description here. We can just take a look at these parts, and so they all have their own unique mark. But the problem that we had is that with all these parts that needed to be renumbered, we had to take great care that none of them changed. And of course we can use the global change, and we can do it that way. But if we make a mistake doing that, we could cause a lot of problems. Tekla has had for years the ability to make global changes and be able to change only certain properties, either in part or assembly marks, and it's easy to filter the model and select that, and so we've done that for years and are very familiar with it. But at the same time, for whatever reason, sometimes in the past when we were working on angle clips or channels or anything like that, we've run into some problems. And so what we're looking for were tools that allowed us to make the changes that we needed to make without having any possibility of disrupting the actual part. So as we take a look at this model again, these parts here, they start with WP, and we needed to renumber those. And so what we've got to do to change those marks is this tool that we've set up. And okay, we don't need to filter the phases. We're not going to work on angle iron or the HSS that we could. If we're working on the angle iron, we could filter it by angle clips, brace angles, um, and we can filter that further only from selected parts. But so there's a number of filters that are involved here on the HSS. We can filter by various names. Um, but here we're just going to filter by plate. That's what these are named. And we want to update the part marks to 1 WP. And no, we don't want to change the part names. And so I'm just going to select these parts. Okay, even though I've selected parts that aren't necessarily plate, they won't be updated. It will only update the ones that are filtered here, and then we'll just run it and check the parts. So the parts that were formerly WP will become 1 WP, and there is no chance that we could flip any parts around. The only property that this is going to affect is the part mark, the assembly mark, and it could have affected the name, but we haven't chosen to do that. So I'll just run this program. We're not changing many parts. In the lower left-hand corner, it tells us that we're updating the assembly and part marks. And so here, okay, so let's go and check some of those marks. So I'll check these parts. Okay, here we are. So now this one is been updated to a 1 WP. Okay, and we'll check some others. Okay, and they had nothing flipped. Now, we of course were able to do that for years, just using the global properties on the parts. But the point is that custom programming with the Tekla Open API can create a level of customization that the operator might feel safer with using, and reduces the possibility of making a mistake. So instead of everything um, instead of the tools being rather global, you can make specific tools, and this doesn't cost very much. It's very inexpensive as far as that goes. So that's what the nature of this video is for, and thank you for taking the time to view the video.